Hello and welcome to Courageous Conversations.
We're here to talk honestly about race, faith, and what it really means to love our neighbor at all costs.
Each and every episode, we are going to sit down with friends and leaders from across Kansas City to share stories. We're going to ask hard questions and we'll laugh a little bit along the way.
To unite people, unite neighborhoods, and eventually unite KC. Let's jump into today's conversation.
Hello and good morning. Good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are. We welcome you to another episode of Courageous Conversations. Here with my co-host, Gary Kendall, and we've got special guests that you are just going to be really excited to hear from today. But before we do that, Gary's got some important cleanup information for you.
Well, I hope that you will take the conversations that you hear today and share them in your own circle of friends. At Courageous Conversations, what we're trying to do is prompt people to talk about the things that don't always get talked about. Sometimes you'll hear challenge, sometimes you'll hear heartache, sometimes you'll hear stories you've never heard or imagined. And maybe it would prompt you to have conversations with others that might advance loving your neighbor, racial reconciliation in our city flourishing. So that's the mission behind Courageous Conversations. You can find them at Apple, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, and certainly on our unitekc.org website. And we'd love for you to pass them on to others.
That's right. All right. So we do have a special guest. It's somebody that both you and I know for years. And we've actually even taking a boat ride with this young man. So we're just happy to have you on the podcast.
He was a good skipper.
That's right.
Yeah.
A great skipper.
George Commons, a person that runs a ministry in Kansas City called Barnabas, and it specializes in helping people who are business leaders to be able to take what they've learned over the course of time and invest them in younger leaders or other leaders, and to be able to raise the water level, if you will, for both how we do the work we do and why we do the work we do. And George comes from the business world himself, and as a successful businessman, now is leading this organization to help others be more successful and in the terminology we're using for our city to thrive. So George, I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to share with us today.
Well, thank you, Ray and Gary, for having me. And just no place I'd rather be than with two of my favorite people on the planet. I just so appreciate you guys. Love Unite KC and what you're doing, and love your heart for the city. And it's just a joy to co-labor with you two brothers. So thanks for having me, and excited to be on this today.
Well, I'm going to tell you, listening audience, the one thing that you're going to love the most about George is that the thing that we have in common is that he is a Star Trek fan as well as being an important businessman in the city. So when you see him out there, you can ask him all kinds of trivia questions, and he's just a wealth of information in that area.
As we always say, live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. That's the idea.
George, I'll be honest with you. When I first heard about Barnabas coming to town, I'd heard about Barnabas in other cities. So I was excited, and I was a little bit afraid because I thought I would love to go before the Barnabas audience and ask for their help. But to be very transparent, I also thought it will expose all my flaws. Mm-hmm. I was leading Love KC at the time. And I thought, I was just intimidated. I thought, man, these people are so advanced, they're so good, they're so sharp, they're going to just see right through everything that needs to be better. And when you actually had us present a couple of years ago, it was the opposite. I had so much encouragement, so much support, people were so gracious, they were so kind. And I'm sure that they did see all the flaws, but the way that they approached helping us to sharpen what we do was beautiful. Why don't we start with you just telling people kind of what Barnabas is.
Yes.
And what you do for helping other not-for-profits and businesses to sharpen their skills for the purpose of city flourishing.
Sure. The Barnabas Group Kansas City, Barnabas Group is a ministry to ministries. We're one of 6 and actually now 7 chapters across the country. And we are a community of business people who want to steward their gifts and talents for the kingdom. And the way they do that is coming alongside ministries to help them flourish. We see the Barnabas Group has been around for 25 years. we've seen over and over when you combine ministry passion with business insight, it's a powerful combination.
Yes, it is.
And it helps ministries thrive and get to the next level. And, the Bible talks a lot about stewardship. And there's a lot of business leaders. We all love God. We serve God. We go to our church. We give and to our church. But if you're a strategist, an IT whiz, an HR expert, whatever, you normally don't have the ability to use those gifts in a church context.
Mm-hmm.
The Barnabas Group was started by Bob Shank and Jim West to give business leaders opportunity to steward those talents for the kingdom.
Right.
So we meet once a quarter. We bring 3 ministries that have been pre-vetted and gone through our application process in front of the group to talk about what they're doing, what their vision is, and where they need help from business people. And then you're in front of 150 or 200 business leaders. Yes, it can be intimidating, but I commend you, Gary, for going through the process. And they engage as God leads with ministries and say, I want to help, love what you're doing. So we're a connector, and that's what we do, and we love doing it, love coming alongside ministries. So we're called the Barnabas Group. If you look at our namesake, biblical Barnabas, in the Bible, you look at his story, he actually came from a tribe of Levites, so his family were priests, but he was a tent maker, a marketplace person. He saw potential in emerging kingdom leaders like Paul and John Mark. In fact, he was the key advocate for Paul, right, to the body of Christ, saying, no, this guy's got potential. He can help us. And Paul's ministry flourished, and Barnabas became a valuable co-laborer with Paul throughout his ministry.
It's beautiful.
And look, we might not have had half of the New Testament if it wasn't for Barnabas.
Oh, yeah.
And so Barnabases are all over. They're maybe in the background, but they play a key role in building the kingdom.
So, George, how many different ministries or nonprofits has the Barnabas Group here in Kansas City helped over its lifetime or inception?
So we're one of the newer chapters. We've been around 5 years, so we've helped 15 to 20 years, so about 100. The Barnabas Group as a collective, which has been around for 25 years, has worked with hundreds of ministries to impact millions of lives.
Man, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm really encouraged by the power of the collective might of people who have a common interest and a skill set, combining their efforts to come alongside a not-for-profit or a ministry. One of the things that's the most inspiring is the work that you guys have done to help people who are working in the sex trafficking area as you help women escape. And it's one of the best examples. You might have more you want to tell us, but it's one of the best examples that I see of a whole community of people coming together to help this really important function. Tell us a little more about how that came to be and some of the stories from that.
Yeah, when I moved to Kansas City in 2019, worked to start building the Barnabas Group. We launched in 2020. Our first event, it was during COVID. We partnered with the Houston chapter's Business Leaders Against Human Trafficking. Coming out of that, I had no idea Kansas City is 4th worst in the country for human trafficking.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It's like, are you kidding me? This is such a beautiful city. How could that be? And got connected to some of the ministries on the ground here trying to fight that. I met a woman named Christine McDonald, a victim of human trafficking. Unfortunately, was in that for many years, finally got out, lost her eyesight, unfortunately, in the process because of abuse that she suffered. But in the very early days of the Barnabas Group Kansas City, God spoke to my heart, and one of our board members felt like we had a strategic assignment in the battle against human trafficking, that he wanted to use business leaders in the battle against human trafficking in Kansas City. And I'm like, okay, God, we're all in. We just want to serve you. And I look back over our 5 years, that's where we've had the biggest impact. It wasn't anything we intentionally set out to do. It's just the hand of God and how he orchestrated it. One of our biggest wins, one of the members in our group, attorney Andrew Spiker, got connected to Christine very early in the Barnabas Group. She reached out to me. She said, I'm trying to rebuild my life, but I have a felony record I need expunged. So I reached out to Andrew. I said, Andrew, what do you think? And he prayed about it and said, I've never done an expungement. I'm a business attorney, but I feel God nudging me. So he leaned in, spent a year getting her record kind of finally expunged it. That's a miracle story in and of itself.
It is.
You should have Andrew on a future podcast just to tell the whole story. Yeah. But, and I said, okay, this is a great success, but there's hundreds of trafficking victims that need this kind of help. And there's only one attorney standing here. So we had a series of meetings the next year to try to scale this. And he found a nationwide law firm that wanted to lean in with a pro bono initiative in human trafficking. And then we found a nonprofit in Michigan that was doing research on expungement cases that needed attorneys to take on the cases that they pre-vetted. He put it all together, launched a nationwide justice initiative for trafficking victims, and now is expanding that to also be justice for battered women. He's just a business guy, but he's leaned in with his talent and his network and built a pretty amazing thing. The Missouri Attorney General heard about it, held a press conference to tell the community because he wanted more law firms to get engaged, and he's recently won a community service award for his work here. And it's just a great example of a business leader leaning in and trying to make a difference in our community.
Yeah, beautiful.
And we, over and over, big stories and little stories. We started last year measuring our impact. We defined a metric called the Kingdom Impact and Connection. And we set a goal of having 30 of those throughout the year. And at the end of the year, we ended up with 49.
Wow.
So almost one a week on the average, a business leader in our group engaging with a ministry to help them move the needle on something they're struggling with. So it just shows the potential of business leaders that want to lean in and be intentional can make a huge difference in our city.
George, you mentioned something earlier when you were giving us your introduction. And so I've got a question about what you feel like the role of business people is in this whole big scheme of things, especially knowing that if a city is going to flourish, they're just going to take funds, and usually funds from people who have some kind of maybe some funds that they've set aside that maybe aren't doing anything. Maybe it's in a DAFT or a family foundation. And so everybody kind of has adopted this is what the church's role is. We're supposed to reach out and help the hurting and love people and love them into the kingdom. What do you think the role of the philanthropic and the business community is in the big scheme of things and making sure that...
I think the business community has a big role, and I think it's greater than just funds. I mean, funds is a key part of it, but I think you need to step back and look at the Greek term that gets translated church in the Bible is ecclesia. And if you really look at what does ecclesia mean, it's a gathering of a community. And translating it to church, some people feel is really not accurate. The best word to translate ecclesia. So I view ecclesia as the community coming together to meet needs. You look at the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? And God judged his church, his ecclesia, for being on the other side of the road and ignoring the hurt that was right there in front of him. There's hurt all over our city.
Yeah.
So I think we first, as Christian business leaders, need to recognize we're part of the greater ecclesia of Kansas City, and we've got a role to play. And as business leaders, you have, yes, prosperity, but talent, personnel, resources, network, right? No one individual is going to solve the big problems in our community, but we bring together those that have a burden for that cause. Together, everybody does their part. We can really move the needle. I've seen it over and over. So, yeah, I think it starts with the Christian business community recognizing we're part of a greater ecclesia, and we've got a role to play, and you've got to lean in and engage. And that probably looks different for every business, but it starts with recognizing our role and our part and leaning in. And you look at what's going on in our country today, more and more the government is saying, We're not going to solve all these problems. We don't have
Right.
resources. We don't have budget. We don't have.
Right.
So who's going to pick up the mantle? I think this is the hour for the ecclesia. The traditional four-wall church isn't going to solve this by themselves, but the ecclesia, the business community and the church ministries coming together can really make a difference.
You know, George, you bring out a great point because, you know, back when I was running my IT business, there was a point that I came to where somebody giving me money, unless they were going to give me millions of dollars, that wasn't going to help me. What I needed was their advice and their wisdom of how do I do this? Maybe you can introduce me to somebody. So, man, I think that you bring out a great point. It's not just money, but and that's, I guess, why the Barnabas model works so well is, again, you get to get vetted and you get to stand up, you get coached, and you get to pitch, and all these wise, sage people are listening to you, and they can offer you advice on how to solve a myriad of problems. It's just a great model.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think about it from the standpoint of God places the members in the church as he sees fit. And he gives many gifts. And depending on which Bible you use, you'll probably find somewhere around 25 gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them are used outside of the church that happens on Sunday morning,
Yeah.
which I think is beautiful. So any business person, whether or not they joined Barnabas or not, probably has a way to use their gifts for the body of Christ, you know, Monday through Friday, maybe Saturday too. The other thing I think about, and you and I have actually had this conversation before, there are people who talk about what they call the five major gifts: apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. If it was on an arrow and they were linear, probably the tip of the arrow are the people who would be the apostles, or the people who are starting new things.
Mm-hmm.
And then right behind them, you know, the apostles, the prophets, people who are telling other people how's this going to work.
Right.
And the evangelists, people who are like networkers and, you know, pulling people into it. And your pastors and teachers are maybe the back part of the arrow where it fits on there and, you know, fits onto the string. I'm not putting down pastors or churches because I am a pastor and I work in a church. What I'm saying is if in the arrow, the apostles, the entrepreneurs, and the evangelists and the, you know, people who are, you know, prophets, if you don't have them playing their roles, I think our society's not nearly as dynamic and not probably as profitable or efficient as it could be if everybody had a role. But I mean, I've grown up and heard churches and pastors and leaders talk about, hey, if you really love God, you're gonna be a pastor or a missionary. And I think that kind of teaching has run its course, and we've come to realize, no, you can use any gift you have anywhere you are, and a lot of them are going to be in the business community. Mm-hmm. And the business community can do many things that relate to discipleship that are similar to what a church is trying to do.
Yeah. I think those apostles and prophets and evangelists, again, in the context of ecclesia, a lot of those roles are business leaders, casting vision for a ministry strategy in a region.
Right.
You look at what happened in the Bible translation world, right? When the Green family and others went to all the ministries doing Bible translation and said, wait a minute, why don't you align on a common roadmap so we're not funding duplication, and you can get to the end goal of making the Bible available in all languages sooner if you did. That was business leaders standing in a apostolic prophetic
office.
I think they shaved off 30 years or something like that in the fulfillment of the Great
And I've seen
Commission.
that locally. There's a beautiful example in Austin, Texas. I saw this a few years ago. Homelessness was a huge problem in Austin. A big tent city had sprung up. Drugs were prevalent. Human trafficking was going on. The city was throwing all kinds of money at it, and the problem wasn't getting solved. Business leaders and church leaders came together and said, hey, there's an abandoned RV park down the road here. If you'll give us that property and let us put RVs and tiny homes on that, we'll relocate these people there and we'll love on them and care for them. And the city said, go for it. And then they built a church, a garden, a jewelry making business, an art studio. They're bringing life to these people, and it's a model community now. People come from all over the world to see how they solve this problem. Again, it's an example of that apostolic leadership showing the way.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. George, recently you and Roxanne had a tragedy, and God, I don't want to spoil the story. I want you to tell the story, but God met you in the middle of that, and it's done something really wonderful that I think the city should hear about. You mind telling us about that?
Yeah, it's a day I'll never forget. It was last May. We were in Lincoln, Nebraska for our nephew's graduation, and that was on a Saturday. The next day, family had all met for breakfast in a nice restaurant. Coming out of the restaurant, Roxanne was feeling a little bit dizzy and faint, and I said, "Just sit here. I'll go get the car." It was about 4 blocks away. I come back with a car and see an ambulance and fire truck in front of the restaurant. My heart sank. I said, "Oh my God, it's Roxanne." Ran into the restaurant. She was on the sidewalk with 6 paramedics around her doing CPR. All I could do was lay on the sidewalk and touch her foot because the rest of she was surrounded by paramedics, and pray. And that went on for 35 minutes. They shocked her 6 times. And I'm crying and praying, "God, this can't be it. This can't be it." I mean, I didn't even have a chance to say goodbye. You got to spare her life. So after 35 minutes, they finally got her stable enough to rush her to a heart hospital. A few hours later, a surgeon cardiologist came to see me and said, "We don't think she's going to live more than a day or 2. Her heart was very weak. Her lungs were filling with fluid. If you're ready to let her go, you need to be thinking about that." I'd called my kids earlier to tell them what happened to their mom. They were all on their way to Lincoln. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know what to think. I said, "How long do I have to make this decision?" They said, "Well, every minute counts at this point." So I took a couple minutes. It was even hard to pray because my mind, my emotions, I was reeling with. This came out of nowhere. We had no clue. There were no symptoms. And I was just flooded with thoughts of future grandkids that she hadn't met. And I wanted them to all know her. I thought that was from God. So they gave me one option, which was a very risky procedure, which we found out later had about a 15% chance of success, which was to connect her to an external heart pump called an ECMO device. So I went back. I said, "I want to go for it. I want to try it." They said, "Okay, we'll try it. Be prepared for a very rocky road with steps forward and steps backward. It'll be at least a week before we know anything." She could bleed out. She could have organ failure. At this point, we don't know what state her brain is in. And she could become dependent on this and never get off it. But if you want to try it, we'll try it. I said, "Yeah, I want to try it." So that's what happened. Next day she got better. Next day she got better. On the third day of all days, they said, "You know what? We've been backing this pump off every couple hours." And they have technicians watching this thing 24 hours a day. There's dials they can change. They said, "We've backed it off as far as we could back it off. Her heart is taking over most of the load at this point. We think we want to try just seeing how she does without it." I said, "Go for it." So on the third day, she came off it and kept getting stronger and stronger. We had a number of other miracles along the way. Needed emergency tracheotomy, and God provided a way for that to get done. Had a kidney infection that cleared up miraculously. But after 5 weeks in Lincoln, Nebraska, we were finally sent back home. And in her medical record, it said she had a cardiac death incident, and it also says she is a living miracle. That's in her official medical record.
Wow.
So the other part of this, I started sending out text prayer requests to people in the Barnabas and church. You guys were a big part of that. And people would send those texts to other people. And one night I get a call from a pastor in India, a friend of ours we hadn't seen in 10 years. I don't know how he knew. He called me and said, George, I just want you to know there's 1,000 people in India praying for Roxanne right now. And a board member of mine is in Turkey, and he said, George, there's 50 pastors in Turkey praying for Roxanne, and hundreds of people in the U.S., I don't know. So there's over 1,000 people around the world in 3 continents praying for Roxanne. So just the prayer and encouragement. I would get scriptures, prayers from people. I saved it on my phone. I read over those every day. Gary, you came to Kansas City and prayed with us, many others as well. And that's 8 pages of prayer and scripture from people.
Wow.
So just the body of Christ coming around us. Again, the ecclesia, a lot of business people from our church came around us, lifted us up. But yeah, what a story.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story.
It is.
It's a life-altering story. I wonder, coming out of that, what are some of the things that you think about now? Like, are there things that have changed in your life or life's perspective in the way that you live, the way that you talk about the faith you have, et cetera? So what changed going through all of that?
Well, we always had a really good marriage, but gosh, our marriage is just... Every day we look at each other and we thank God that we're together and we're next to each other.
Yeah.
We just cherish every day, every moment together. So I'm just doubling down on valuing relationships with my wife, with my kids, with my friends.
Yes.
It just, gosh, relationships are what's undergirded us through this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just doubling down on that. That's probably the thing to take away. Life is a gift. Every day is precious. And we just got to steward it well.
Yes, yes.
You know, George, you have no idea how big of an influence you have on the city and on the people's lives that you touch. You're a great example. But as a matter of fact, who knew with all the breakfasts and lunches that I've been to with you, and I would always watch at you and kind of pick at you for having to eat this. You were eating grains and tree bark and all kinds of healthy stuff. And you were like, no, Ray, this is the way I eat. And I'm sucking down waffles. And then here I have to adopt the same diet that you have now. And I was
now you're the role model.
That's right. No, I was like, well, if George can do it, I guess maybe I better suck it up and get it done. But thank you, man. Thank you for, it's not, again, to have people like you and Gary in my life that are not only wise but godly. You love your families. You and again, you're successful. Man, that who wouldn't want that? And so, man, we appreciate you being here with us today. I'm going to let Gary wrap us up. But man, it's just an honor to know you, and it's an honor to be associated with Barnabas Group.
Well, I just again want to say it's an honor to know you guys. I mean, I walk in humble following what you guys. I mean, Gary, how he's such a gift to the city, how he stepped into this role, and his heart for the city, and you, Ray, as well. And what an honor to just try to follow you guys and what you're doing for the city and to co-labor with you. There's nobody I respect more than you guys. There's a lot of great leaders in the city, but you guys, you're at the Mount Rushmore.
Wow, man! Thank you. Thank you.
What an honor to.
I'm not sure how to follow that.
That's right, man.
I did have one more question. I wanted to
ask.
Go for it.
I always cut him off too soon.
No, you don't.
Fire away.
You do well. So you have a vision in your mind and heart of how not-for-profits could work together more in a more collaborative way. I know it's still forming, but I do think it's significant. I think it's from God. I think that you're onto something. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I'm very excited about that. We're just launching something called Causes Solution Communities. And we want to bring together, we believe there are certain people in the city that God has given a burden for a problem, whether that be human trafficking, racial reconciliation, city flourishing, homelessness. God's marked you for that. And whether you're in a business or in a church or in public sector, if you have a burden for that, none of us can solve that problem in isolation,
right.
But if we can solve it together in community. So we're trying to form these communities. And we've recently licensed a database and an analytics package. So we're now doing analysis, who's doing what in Missouri and Kansas in the nonprofit world, both faith-based and not faith-based, around each of these causes. And we look at what is our regional capacity. Start there. What's our regional capacity per cause? Who's doing what where? How big are they? How many people do they have? And then as leaders that care about this cause, we could say, all right, let's dream. What are the white spaces? What are the opportunities to partner and collaborate? How do we really move the needle on trying to solve this cause in a way that honors God and touches lives? So that's what Causes is all about. We're just cast vision forward. We're taking baby steps as God leads and provides. But as I talk to leaders around the city, they're all saying, yes, this is needed. God is in this. So I'm excited about that. So we've just cast vision and see where God takes it and what he does with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
to me,
awesome.
it's the collective impact of collaboration,
Yeah.
and where we take the gifts, the life experience, the passions, talents, and you combine them, and then you can cross over the lines that sometimes we've drawn, that we've become siloed in some cases. Like lots of churches doing good work, lots of not-for-profits doing good work, but sometimes the dots don't connect.
Right.
And you're trying to connect the dots, which I think is beautiful. And you're doing it in a way that's going to continue to draw people together, because there's something that happens in their heart about a cause that's important to them.
Right.
So thank you for doing that, George.
Yeah,
really,
and one
really
thing I just want to
appreciate
add, there's a lot of good work going on, but it's all in isolation. And when
Too
you
often.
start to bring
Too
together
often.
those individual points of light in a unified strategy,
Completely
then we
agree.
become a much brighter point of
Completely.
light.
Absolutely.
And I think that's how we get to City Flourishing.
Yeah,
When I
exactly.
think about what is it that would make a city flourish, it would be that. I like to say our city's too diverse, too big for any one person, any one ministry to do it all.
Yep.
I don't even think it's God's intention.
Right.
I think
Agreed.
He always intended we would do it together.
Right.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
thank you for helping lead that charge.
Well, and thank you again, United KC. You guys are also on the forefront of bringing the city together, and love what you're doing, and glad to partner and co-labor with United KC.
Yeah. Well, thank
Fantastic.
you. So as we wrap up today, just want to encourage you to take the ideas that you've heard here and advance them further. Have more conversations with other people, provoke someone into a conversation, and then let's see if we can get to a better place, because we've just keep widening the circle like a pebble that goes in a pond. The ripples eventually reach the shore. So you can be a part of that too. You can begin by liking, sharing, subscribing, and then as we do that, then this community grows, and we thank you for the part you play.
All right. Well, that's it for today. And please tune in again for another conversation with an interesting guest and with Gary Kendall. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Courageous Conversations.
We hope you heard something that encourages you to start these conversations in your own life.
Because when we talk, listen, and learn together, we move closer to uniting people, uniting neighborhoods, and uniting KC.
And don't forget, you can find more stories, events, and resources at unitekc.org.
So until next time, go love your neighbors at all costs.